Oh God. Oh God. Oh. Oh. Oh, why do you do this to us?
Not an
Oh,
improvement?
we fought in two world wars together. Why do you hate us? Oh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Very Special Relationship, the podcast that straddles an ocean, but only in the champagne room. I'm your host, Andrea Bridges-Smith, and with me from the Interesting Times is Matt Johnston. Matt, everything all right on your end?
Yeah. Hello, Andrea. Well, yeah, not too bad over here. I mean, Sunak's still unpopular. The Rwanda deal still hasn't happened, and it's currently being lambasted by the Lords, the House of Lords at the moment.
Okay.
Now, the right-wing press has also been just continually laying into Sunak. It's normally that they would actually sort of praise the Conservative leader, but I think even they realise that that's a bridge too far, if you like. What this has meant has been lots of reporting from papers like The Express and The Telegraph of Sunak being ousted. You'll forgive me if I say don't believe a word of it. If they wanted to get rid of Sunak, they would have done last year when, I don't know, I mentioned it. Anyway, a bit late now. I mean, who want to take over when you're 20 points behind in the polls? That's like being on the Titanic and saying, don't panic, everyone. We just hit an iceberg and the captain's and one of those life rafts dressed as a woman, but we need another captain. Who'd like the job?
Yeah, it might be more useful if you could volunteer people to be hit by the icebergs. You might get a few more volunteers there.
Now, by the way, did you know that our Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, fasts for 36 hours a week? Yeah.
Why?
From 5 p.m. on Sunday evening to 5 a.m. on Tuesday. And it's looking, unfortunately, like the rest of us are going to have to follow suit. It's down to Brexit, which has reared its ugly head again. Basically, the food that we import from the EU is going to cost more. This is one of those instances where we, as you Americans say, kick the can down the road on EU food imports. By when we were a member of the EU, we basically, our food was just transferred, from country to country, and we didn't have to check it at all. Now these checks are coming in, and each of these foods as well is going to have some sort of certification just to show it's edible, I guess. So the cost of our food is going up, which suits me as well because I'm trying to lose weight this year.
Well, that's very nice of the government to help you and everyone else achieve your weight loss goals. That's handy of them. New Year's resolution time and all that.
Yeah.
Well, I have been locked up for days with a case of COVID, so I have had nothing but time to read the news. And a recurring theme here, as well as over there, is what is going on with immigration. So I know that you guys have had your troubles with immigration. You've got the Rwanda scheme and all that. Anything new to report from your end? And then I can explain what's happening over on this side.
Well, first things first, I hope you're better now. Is it your first case?
No, I've had it before, and this time was definitely milder, so I'm not too bad considering.
All right. Okay, that's good. Well, immigration is definitely a worldwide issue. We are attempting to solve the crisis of tens of thousands of refugees crossing the channel in sometimes fairly hazardous conditions by sending no one to Rwanda. The thing is that the UK... Yeah, I know it's for some reason doesn't appear to be working. The thing is that the UK does not experience anything like the migratory numbers that other countries do, but we still get hysterical about it, and it will undoubtedly be a fairly big issue in the upcoming general election.
Yeah, same goes for us. Speaking
of your particular part of the States, there's a lot of talk in the news about Texas. I believe that's called the Lone Star State.
Yes, indeed.
So proud of myself for getting that right. Anyway, somewhere that you call home, Andrea, I know. Now, I know Texas is big. I didn't know this, but you could actually fit the UK nearly 3 times into it. But anyway, are you okay and away from any cross-border skirmishes, but still close enough to give us some idea of what's going on?
Yes, thanks to the sheer bigness of Texas, I'm about 5 hours drive away from the border, so not in the middle of any skirmishes. But here's what's going on over here. There are a lot of people trying to come into the U.S. right now from all over the world. We've got a lot of people from Central America, Ukraine, China, just absolutely everywhere. I think it's probably because we have so much ranch dressing. So they get to Mexico and then they often walk, They come on foot through tough terrain to get across the border. And then once they get here, the idea is that they apply for asylum, or they meet up with relatives who are already here, or just try and get a job and start working wherever they can. Anything to get a hold of some ranch dressing.
That's what it's all about. Can I, interject? I have
Sure.
a personal story here insofar as many years ago, I, as a young man, wanting to live and work in the States, I actually went over there and I hooked into the, can I put it as the illegal kind of working variety?
Gasp.
And yeah, I was paid, I basically worked in kitchens and I was paid cash in hand. I divvied up my shift. I did I did like odd days, and this other guy who was like from South America did even days. I lasted about 3 days and I'd had enough. This guy, though, from South America was such a worker. I think with his first paycheck, he bought himself a brand new pair of shoes. Never had a brand new pair of shoes before. So there we go.
Wow.
I'm fully aware of the American black market jobs, as it were.
Right, right. Now, with so many people coming over, border towns are starting to get overwhelmed with people needing the basics like food and shelter. So Republican governors have said, how could I be a bigger dick today? And ship them off to other cities. Now, those cities are starting to say, we've also got too many people, and so we need more funding for immigration courts to process asylum claims more quickly, for food and shelter for the migrants, for border enforcement agents, and maybe even one day we'll get some funding to address the root causes of all this damn migration. And of course, we need to replenish our supply of ranch dressing, which is difficult because the valley is very hidden.
Right. Yeah.
Now, Matt, I'm curious because I know that the UK is dealing with this as well. So where are the people immigrating from, and why are they coming to the UK? Is it similar to ours, or is it a bit different?
I suspect it's probably similar to the world over. I mean, it's a fairly involved and complex question, I guess. I'm going to try and break it down to fairly handy little media-sized chunks.
Okay.
Why not? Our immigration was actually over 1 million last year, came into the UK, and those emigrating, that meant our population has grown by over 600,000 people.
Okay.
Now, all the news headlines relate to small goats crossing. That isn't a problem at all. Small boats crossings. You know, it's one of Sunak's 5 pledges to stop the small boats, but
Right.
they only account for tens of thousands. I mean, it's a small minority, really. The vast majority of people come for work. The refugees will come from places like Afghanistan, Sudan, Iran, certainly a lot of Middle Eastern places. Those working have actually mainly come from India. Over 250,000 came last year. Also, surprisingly, Nigeria, I see. There's something like over 150,000. And less
Okay.
surprisingly, Ireland.
Right.
I mean, since Brexit, the EU nationals as a whole are coming here less. I guess people migrate because they can't stay where they are. It's a fairly glib response, but it's true. What about the States? Why are people migrating there? And where are they coming from?
So here, there's all kinds of reasons. So we have some Chinese that are coming because their economy sucks and ours is better. Ukrainians are coming for obvious reasons. I think we both have that in common. And Central Americans are coming because there's very little economic opportunity and there's a lot of lawlessness and violence. I read one story because I wanted to do research about this because I was like, why are so many people coming? And I read the story that was awful about this mother and her 8-year-old son. So her son had been playing outside and had witnessed a gang shooting. Now, obviously, gangs aren't fans of witnesses to their crimes hanging around, so they had to flee for her son's safety. Now, a lot of Republicans would be like, that's not our problem, send them back, let them deal with it. But we have simply got to let that woman and her son in. Sending them back is a death sentence, and they don't deserve that.
No, I mean, that's shocking, especially for a nation that's always prided itself on being a nation founded on migration, you know, fleeing justice, that whole thing.
Right. We literally have a whole statue that specifically requests tired, huddled masses. It's kind of our whole deal. So the bad news is that absolutely no one wants to take a look at the root causes for all this migration and try to do something about that. Heaven forbid. In fact, they're not even trying to replenish our strategic ranch dressing reserves.
Right. Yeah. It's all about the ranch dressing, isn't it?
It is, in the end.
This is true. I was thinking there are two parts to the UK's problem. One, we reduce the amount of overseas aid to the poorest countries under Boris Johnson's leadership.
Right.
And two, we are seventh on the table of countries that export most weapons. I mean, you could probably guess who's number one.
Oh, is that us again?
It's nearly double what China and Russia combined exported in 2023.
Really?
So
It's kind of a
I
lot.
guess yeah, it is a lot. Yes. Well, in fact, it's 40% of the world's weapons are exported from America.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sizable.
So anyway, I guess we're quite happy to sell the weapons to bomb your house, just not prepared to give you a roof over your head after.
Right. Yes, we are familiar with that premise. Now, there is some good news. Republicans and Democrats have been working on a deal to address some of the issues at the border. Doesn't that sound nice? But the bad news is that Donald Trump seems to be trying to torpedo the thing because, we've got plenty of torpedoes laying around, apparently. You see, immigration is one of the few issues where Trump is seen to be stronger. So if they sign a bipartisan deal and they fix the border over the next several months, then that's one less issue that he has to run on. And he'll have to say stolen election even more times to make up for the hole in his speeches where Mexicans are criminals would go. So we've got the new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who is what would happen if Mayonnaise ran for Congress, saying that the deal being worked out in the Senate will never pass in the House. And in fact, the House is going in a different direction by trying to impeach Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. That's their only plan right now to address these immigration issues, is to make the Democrats look bad and don't bother coming up with a plan.
Oh, well, so Andrea, who is Miyakas, which does sound like a percussion instrument, and what were they the secretary of, or what are they the secretary of?
He is the Secretary of Homeland Security, and many feel that the homeland is somewhat less secure with just people coming in willy-nilly. So in an effort to blame Democrats, they're going after him, saying that he's failed to do his job, never mind the fact that he needs for them to approve more funding in order for him to do his job to the best of his ability. But this is no time to get hung up on facts, am I right?
Who needs them?
So that's where we stand currently. We've got Republicans in control of the House, albeit by a slim margin, and they don't want to work with Democrats at all if they can help it. Meanwhile, you've got the Senate, which is controlled by Democrats and generally contains more elder statespeople who remember how to compromise. So anything the House wants likely won't pass through the Senate and vice versa. And I'm curious, Matt, if your Houses of Commons and Lords has the same kind of gridlock, or do they function together a little bit better, despite the fact that they generally have a little bit more shouting and cursing?
Well, there shouldn't be too much in the way of cursing. That would be considered unparliamentary. You're also not allowed to address the person directly. He's got to be done through the speaker. There's all these rules. Honestly, it's not fit for purpose, to quote an old Home Secretary. But yes, essentially you've got the House of Commons, which is elected by the people, and the House of Lords, which is can be people put in place either by prime ministers leaving, as in the case of people like Liz Truss and Boris Johnson, Theresa May, people like that, or hereditary. And sometimes it can be hereditary as well. And what happens is the House of Commons will put forward a bill or try and pass it through. The thing is, the House of Lords can't stop the bill. They can reject it. They can sort of turn around and say this needs amendments, but the House of Commons doesn't have to listen to them. So in that regard, the House of Commons has a lot more say, has a lot more power rather than the House of Lords. So we don't really have gridlock as such. It can still take some time though.
Interesting. Okay, because here both the House and the Senate have to agree on something before it's sent to the president's desk for the president's signature. And so if they don't ever agree with each other, then pretty much nothing gets done. And in fact, last year, the last session of Congress, they said, was one of the least productive sessions of Congress ever. which you'll remember last year we had the big, getting Kevin McCarthy in through
Yes.
15 rounds of
Yes.
voting and
Oh,
then
God, yes.
discarding
Wow.
him not too long after. Not quite as short a tenure as that head of lettuce over there, but started to maybe get like a moldy rutabaga sort of a deal after a bit.
Wow. Wow.
So, Matt, let's move on to some lighter news. In about a week and a half over here in the States, we're going to have the Super Bowl, which is the top game in American football. And this year there is a big controversy. And no, it is not the fact that the 3-hour game only produces 11 minutes of actual playing time. I believe your football produces quite a bit more.
I guess it would if I watched it. I'm sorry, I don't have a team. I don't follow any of that. Not too much. If they play in the World Cup or the Euros, I'll follow them. But apart from that, I don't really tend to bother. I've got to be honest there. Anyway, from what I understand, the Super Bowl is more of an all-day event for you Americans, right? Where you just basically meet up, have a Super Bowl party somewhere, you watch it and consume vast amounts of carbs and soda. Is that right?
Exactly. There are also chicken wings, a lot of dips, and way too much beer. There's actually been people who have suggested that the day after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday so people can sleep it off.
I think
So
that's
far,
fair.
yeah, I mean, I understand why they would want that, but the big controversy this year is that the Kansas City Chiefs, we do not have time to discuss the mascot there, they will be playing, which includes Taylor Swift's boyfriend. And according to right-wing conspiracy theorists, this is all part of an elaborate plan to steal the election for Joe Biden. Does that make sense?
I guess about as much as anything else does.
Sure, it's a pretty obvious conspiracy. So you've got Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, who admittedly do sound like an idea cooked up by a very astute publicist, but they have become very visible everywhere. And some people think they're a little too famous, suspiciously famous. So Travis Kelce has done vaccine commercials for Pfizer, and Taylor Swift has encouraged her fans to register to vote, although she didn't say who for, so that all must be part of a secret plan by the Democrats to get all the Swifties to vote for Joe Biden by being at football games. Is that starting to make sense, or should I get out some corkboard and index cards and string?
Yeah, well, I have to say that's outrageous. How dare Taylor Swift try to steal your democracy by telling people that they should vote?
I know, she's the worst.
Now we're gonna have the, what do you call the Taylor Swift fans? Swifties.
Swifties,
And the Swifties
yes.
after us. Oh dear. Now, Andrea, while we're talking on lighter news, maybe not so much lighter news. I see there's trouble brewing.
Okay.
As an American scientist, there we go, a little bit of a pun for you. As an American scientist, has perfected a way to make a good cup of tea. I mean, just glad to see we found a cure for all those worldwide plagues, right? They're now trying to tell us Brits how it should be done, to which I can only say, oh, really? Well, I can't think of anything better than a cup of Yorkshire tea, but I am always willing to learn. So the scientist says that you should add a small amount of salt to it. Let me be clear, there are only two reasons to add salt to a cup of tea. One, you can't stand the person you're making it for. Or two, you never want to be asked to make it again.
Just going to jot that down in my how to handle my enemies notebook. Go on.
Well, don't say I'm not prepared to give science a go. So,
Okay.
I've got here a cup of tea, Yorkshire,
All right.
and I've got some salt,
Okay.
and I'm going to add one to the other. Oh, there's a bit. There we go. I'm going to add one to the other and give it a go.
Very scared right now.
Down the hatch. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh. Oh. Oh, why do you do this to us?
Not an
Oh,
improvement?
we fought in 2 world wars together. Why do you hate us? Oh. Sorry, that's going to have to get ditched. Oh, I didn't expect that. Oh, my word. Oh. Okay. Can I respectfully ask, Andrea, that you don't tell us how to make our tea, please? And we won't tell you how to spray your cheese. I knew it was an issue, honestly, when you guys made iced tea, which makes as much sense as boiled cola.
You know, we'd be in real trouble if you told us how to spray our plastic cheese mat. It'd be 1776 all over again. Nobody wants
We
that.
won't want that. We won't want that. All right. Well, on that, leaving a bad taste in my mouth, last reaction there. I think that's all the time we've got. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Same time, same place next week, Andrea?
Yes, and hopefully with a unsullied cup of tea for you.
That'd be good. That'd be good. And now, if you want to catch up on the latest pre-election gubbins going on in the US, then by all means, subscribe to Andrea's channel. You're already here, so, please do so. It's at Phoenix News Network. And for mine, you need to go to at Interesting Times UK. And we will see you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.